My name is Sharyn Sarner. Today is January the 16th. I'm interviewing Max Schneider for the Jewish Historical Foundation of Fairfield County, and we are at the JCC in Stamford, Connecticut. Max, where were you born?
I was born in Vienna, Austria,
And what date were you born?
October 3rd, 1922.
And who were your parents? Tell us about your parents.
Well, my parents were born in part of pre-World War I Austria, in the province of Galicia, which had a population mostly of Poles, Ukrainians, and Jews.
And what did your parents do?
My parents, when they came to Vienna, they opened a grocery store, and they operated the store until Hitler took it away from them.
Tell us about your early life. Did you have siblings?
My early life?
Yeah. Did you have siblings, sisters and brothers? Did you have sisters and brothers, siblings?
Yes, I had one brother. He was 6 years younger than I am. And
Tell us about your life as a young man in Vienna.
well, I wasn't a young man, I was a young boy. I went to regular school in Vienna, and in the afternoons my dad used to send me to Hebrew school to get instruction, That's about all I can tell you. I was just an average student. Nothing outstanding about me, but I passed everything,
And what was life like in Vienna?
Well, when I was a little boy, it was okay. I had friends on the street, they were not Jewish, but I played with them.
And tell us about your home life. Did you celebrate Jewish events in your household? Did your parents keep a Jewish home?
My father was very religious. He made sure that all the holidays were kept properly, and he could read the Hebrew text of prayer books. He was very good at it. In fact, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, he used to be the guy that was the reader in the synagogue. He used to do the Shacharis and Musaf and Nila and Yom Kippur. And Kol Nidre, of course, too, on Yom Kippur. He wanted me to be as religious as him, but it just didn't work out.
Was there a big Jewish community?
Vienna, after World War I, became a pretty big Jewish community. I think we had roughly about 200,000 Jews, which is a lot for a 2 million population in Vienna,
Did you have a bar mitzvah? Did you have a bar mitzvah?
I was bar mitzvah, yes, in Vienna.
Right. Do you remember anything about it?
Huh?
Do you remember much about it?
Just an average bar mitzvah, I held a speech that wasn't really my speech, I just repeated it.
Yeah. And you said your father had a grocery store until the Nazis took it away. Can you tell us something about what that was like? You said your father had a grocery store until the Nazis took it away. Can you tell us something about that?
Well, I got to tell you where my father came from first.
That's fine.
My father came from a little town in Galicia called Lubachov. And in 1912, his brother, which was traveling all over Europe, you know, wrote him a letter. He said, Samson, why don't you come to Vienna instead of starving in Lubachov, which actually he was, you know. Come to Vienna and get a job over here. He tried it, and he started working for a Hungarian Jew that owned a wholesale kosher grocery that delivered to Jews all over the city of Vienna. Well, when he came, he served in 1914. He was called into the Austrian army, and he served on the Russian front. He served until 1916, and the Russians broke through, and they surrounded the whole Austrian army of 150,000 men near Przemysl, Holland. He was captured with all the rest of them, and they were driven to Russia, you know. Well, from what I heard, you know, the drive was very bad. It was a death march. They were driven by Kazakhs, and if anybody couldn't keep up with the rest of them, you know, they wouldn't even bother putting a bullet through it. They just take the bayonet and just ran through them, you know, and let them lay on the side of the road. He came to a railroad hub, and the food was awful. It was awful even before they were captured, you know, because they didn't have no food for weeks until they finally surrendered, you know. And he wound up with dysentery. So many Austrian soldiers wound up with dysentery, and they died. The story that he tells about the dysentery, they put him in a barn, and the pain was so great that he thought he was going to die. So he called out Shema Yisrael. I don't know if you know what it is.
Sure.
Shema Yisrael. And a Hungarian Jew, he was a doctor, heard him call out and walked over, and he said, hold on, I'm going to get you medicine, I'm going to fix you.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he hadn't hung on, and the guy came back with medicine, and he took care of him, and he came back to himself. Well, then he had to go back to the railroad station, and they assembled at the railroad station, and there was a big Kazakh walking along the lines, you know, and all the prisoners were in different rows, you know. And in the row before him, there was a Jewish prisoner from his town. And as the Kazakh walked down and asked everybody, what nationality are you? Because Austria was made of so many nationalities, you know. what nationality are you? And he said, Ivray, I'm a Jew. And the guy kicked him in the groin, and the guy just doubled up. Well, when my father saw that, he started to think quick. That's going to happen to him too, you know. The guy came to the second room, came to him. My father had black, very fine black hair, you know. He came to him, he says, what nationality are you? He said, Tsigan. Tsigan means a gypsy. So he said, then you know about horses. So it goes like this, you know. Go over there to the railroad boxcar. He went in there, they took him to Siberia. They needed people that, you know, the farmers needed people over there because all their people were drafted. All their young people were drafted. So he came to this farmer, seen him and asked him if he wanted to work for him. He said, he had no choice, you know. So he said, you come with me, you know. And they came there to his farm, came in a horse and wagon, you know, to his farm. Sure. That's in Siberia now. And the farmer says to him, go saddle up this horse. Well, what does a Jewish boy know about saddling up a horse, you know? So he tried to put the saddle on the horse, and the horse started backing away. So that farmer said, you're no cigar. But he needed him, and he was good to him, and my father did everything that he wanted. It got to a point, you know, that he sent him with a horse and wagon, he sent him in with milk to the town, you know. And that's another thing he told me about the milk. The milk didn't come in bottles over there, of course. They came in a canvas bag, and when they put it outside, it froze. It was wintertime, you know, froze solid. So he took the bag, brought it to the merchant in town, and what they did is they just chopped pieces of it and weighed it. And that's how they sold the milk. Wow. Over there. Wow. An interesting thing, you know. Well, he stayed there till 1917. The Russian Revolution broke out. And Lenin came to power finally. The Bolsheviks took over. And the Swedish Red Cross made a deal so they exchanged prisoners, you know. And he was taken across the Baltic. In fact, he was driven across the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Sea, very few people know that. It's not all salt water. It's fed by the glacier from Sweden, you know, and it's sort of brackish water, you know, and it freezes. Right. It was so cold, they took him across the Baltic Sea into Sweden, and from there they gave him documents saying that he can't be, one of the conditions was that he can't be sent to the Western Front because the war was still going on, you know. Well, anyway, he went back to the Vienna. In 1919, they released him from the army. Well, what does a guy do when they release him from the army? He wants to go home. Go home, and had a girl there, his next door neighbor, Frida, my mother. He goes home, and he sees her, and they wanted to make plans to get married. And one guy came in, he was in shul, and one guy came in and says, Shimshon, tug dich weg. You understand that? Get away from here. They're looking for you. The Poles think you're a spy, Ukrainian spy. Get out of here as fast as you can. He took his advice, went to the railroad station, bought a ticket to Vienna. Went back to Vienna, went back to his old boss, you know, and was back in the job there. And my mother had to come to Vienna to get married. That's how it started.
Right, right.
Well, my mother was a very special person. She was very smart. We called it, the kids called her a computer, you know.
Really?
She could do arithmetic in her head that you'd be amazed. Get up, getting sore. And my mother prevailed on this is the story that I got. She prevailed on my dad to get independent. And they got a little store, and they opened up a little store. And they both worked the store, you know. And eventually they worked themselves up to and they got the biggest store next door, and that's where they operated from until Hitler came into Vienna, 1938, March 1938. Well, it was a tough time when they first marched in. And we had a large illegal Nazi population there. And they were trying to do the worst to the Jews. Well, before they came in, there was a lot of propaganda on the floor, you know, because the Austrian government wanted to survive, you know, they didn't want to go, but it didn't do any good. They marched in anyway, you know. I still remember the last words that the chancellor said over the radio after saying that he is abdicating. He says, "Ich weiche der Gewalt, I yield to force." And they took him away. Schuschnigg, Kurt von Schuschnigg. Well, anyway, going back to my dad, they had to open up the store. The store was closed for a day or two, you know, but they had to open up the store, you know. It was a food store, you know. And he's in the store, and in come SA man, Sturmabteilung, brown shirts, came in, says, "Schneider, you come with us." Took him out there into a busy street, gave him a small brush, said, "We want you to clean that up." There was a whole lot of guys there. As he was cleaning there, a guy came back, also an illegal Nazi, but he knew him from World War I, you know. As a soldier, he knew him. He walked over to him and says, they always called him by his last name. His first name was Samson, so he wasn't that big to be a Samson. So he said to him, "Schneider, what are you doing here?" He says, "Well, they took me out of the store and they made me do this." So you walked over to one of the SA men and said, how can you take a guy that served the Kaiser 4 years in World War One, that was a prisoner of war, that was wounded, and exchanged, and how can you do this to them? So the guy sort of, this guy was, he had some influence, He says, well, take him home. So he brought him back to the store. That was, I remember that,
I'm sure.
vividly,
I'm sure, yes.
Well, we were going along until November 10th. I remember the guy that killed the Van Raat in Paris, and I think his name was, I don't remember, I think it was Greenspan, if I'm not mistaken. I wouldn't swear to it. But anyway, the pogrom started. My father went to the store like every day. He opened up the store, and one of the Jewish men came in, says, Schneider, close that store and get out of here. They're picking people off the street. And they're sending him who knows where, He did. And my dad said, you come with me. We went to the roof of the apartment building, and the way the roofs are done over there, the pitched roofs, and on the bottom they leave a space for air to come through so it doesn't rot.
Mm-hmm.
So we went up to me and him went up to the roof, and we laid between the rafters. And we were able to look down on the street and see what was going on.
Okay.
My mother and my little brother, he was only 6,
You were 16, right?
The what?
You were 16.
Yeah, I was 15.
15, okay.
And she locked herself into her apartment, and that place had a good solid oak door,
Mm-hmm.
They came for us, but they couldn't get in, and she was absolutely quiet, and my brother was absolutely quiet. In the meantime, we looked downstairs and we seen they were throwing clothes out and shoes out and coats and bedding, and there was a mob downstairs. They were grabbing, We stayed there for the entire day, until it got real late, and we went downstairs to see how my mother was doing.
Yeah.
Thank goodness she was doing okay. Well, right after that, the party sent somebody over, somebody that we knew that used to be a customer, and they demanded the keys for the store. They closed the store, my father was out of business. Well, my mother was pretty friendly with her, and she was an illegal Nazi actually, And my mother said to her, "You're doing this to me, like this."
Right.
He says, "You're lucky we didn't take your husband." That was the answer.
Wow.
But it was a truthful answer,
Right.
Well, we stayed along for things quieted down because there was a lot of the newspapers were writing about it, all over the world,
Right.
even in the United States, and things quieted down, and we stayed at home. We stayed at home. You're waiting for an affidavit to come to the United States,
Okay.
because my mother had a brother here in Warbury, New Jersey at the time. And you needed an affidavit to get in.
Right.
You couldn't get into the United States, not like today, you
I
know.
know.
We had a tough time. The affidavit came to the consulate,
Mhm.
to the American consulate, and they called us and they said, we can't let you into the United States. The affidavit is not strong enough. He didn't have enough money to show that he could support us, you know. So my mother wrote him a letter, you know, do something. Things are getting real bad,
Right.
you know. In the meantime, the Germans took over Czechoslovakia, you know. Remember the affair with Mr. Chamberlain, peace in our time, you know, in Munich. But when they took the Sudetenland, they took the rest of it too, you know. That was Hitler. And we knew things were going to get worse.
Right.
And my mother, in the letter, she put pressure on her brother.
Your brother, yeah.
And she told him, go to this one person, Reinfeldt. You ever read the back of, you don't read, the back of a whiskey?
Yeah, yeah.
It says down there, especially Pinch, it says in the back, Renfield Importers.
Yeah.
He was he was a big wheel there, you know.
Mhm.
And now I'm going to quote my cousin that he told me about the story. My cousin at the time was 13 years old. He was just bar mitzvah. And my uncle went to this guy and told him the story that they didn't accept his affidavit.
Right.
Could he do something? And this guy got all red in the face, stood up and says, "You SOB, why didn't you come to me before? You know what's going on over here."
Mhm.
That's the kind of a guy he was.
Mm.
He called in his secretary, says, "You call up the State Department immediately and get a new affidavit done." And that's the affidavit we came
Oh
on.
my God. Your whole family, your brothers,
My brother,
yeah.
my dad,
and your
and my
brother,
mother.
and you, yeah.
And
What year was this?
in 1939,
Mm.
August 1939.
Mm.
We went to
So you went to New Jersey? Did you end up in New Jersey when you first came to this country? Where did you end up?
Yeah, but only for a few days because Jersey was known. But anyway, we came to, we got the affidavit
Right.
was okay, and we got the railroad tickets and boat tickets. That's
Right.
the main thing. We went with a British liner, you know. And we had to go to England and England, and from there we went to, you know.
Did you get to Ellis Island?
No, no Ellis Island. We were okay. Everything they checked our, our medical condition and everything. Everything was okay. But I just want to say, the last insult when we left Vienna, you know, and we left in early August, Vienna, and we came to the Swiss border. They stopped the train and they took my mother off the train. It scared the life out of all of us, you know. Took her off, and they examined her from top to bottom. They were looking for jewelry or whatever, you know. She had nothing. Finally, she came back, and we all started to breathe easy. And finally, the train started moving, and we went to Paris. We went through Switzerland and up to Paris. From Paris, we went to Dieppe, France. You know, from there we took one of those little boats that they have. You know, the channel boats. You know. I think we went to Newcastle. I'm not sure.
It's okay.
And from there we went by train to London. Stayed overnight in London, and from London we went to Liverpool, and we shipped into Cunard liner. We arrived in New York. We arrived on August 22nd. My uncle, my cousin, you know, they came and picked us up from the Cunard place, and they took us to Jersey, to Rahway, New Jersey. We stayed there a few days, you know, but there was no future there.
Right.
They had to go back to New York. So I stayed there a little longer. They left me a little longer, and my mother and him went to New York, and they made connections with people that they had, you know. And that's about it. Then I came with them to New York.
Right. And what did you do in New York? Okay, so once you got here, what happened with you?
My mother wanted me to go back to school. She wanted me to become an engineer. I took in Vienna. The last school was a engineering school for technical engineering school for high school.
Right.
For 2 years. When Hitler marched in, we just tried to finish it. I can tell you stories about what happened to me. I only told you about my parents. They put us immediately, the Jewish boys, they took them into one of the benches in the back, ghetto benches they call it. And we had about 30 students in the class. It was a pretty strong Jewish class. We had 6 Jewish kids there, you know. And we had the last 2 benches in the back. Well, we had to mind our own P's and Q's and insults and everything else. But we survived. I wanted to get the diploma.
Right.
I didn't get it. I got a temporary diploma. And they were supposed to send it to us, but evidently the school closed up, you know. That's what I can tell you. So there was a lot of incidents. And the reason I'm still here is I could run pretty good.
So once you were in New York, did you continue your education?
Well, once I went to New York, I had an argument with my mother. My mother wanted me to be an engineer
right.
in a voice way, you know. And I said, you can't put me through school. I'm 16 years old now, and I want to make my own way. And we had somebody come up here from one of the Jewish organizations, and they gave me a job because, you know, I was...
So what did you do? What kind of job?
a factory job
Mm-hmm.
in on 87th Street in Yorkville,
Mm-hmm.
doing Venetian blinds, just working machines, you know.
Right.
I was good with machines, you know. But they closed up Christmas. They closed up. I said to myself, "This is no good. This is
Right.
There's no future here, you know. I got to learn something, you know." But I couldn't get what I wanted, you know. So I got a job on 42nd Street, and I stayed there for a while. I was a gopher.
Mm-hmm.
Go for this and go for that. And
What did you eventually do?
the what?
What did you eventually do?
Well, eventually what happened, I got a job. I looked for a job as a plumber, electrician. That's what I really wanted, you know, be an electrician. But the unions would not accept me. There wasn't a union that would take me. The only thing that was open is the dirtiest jobs there was, being a mechanic on an open lot. And I started working as a mechanic, mechanic's helper. And even that wasn't so easy. I walked into the guy. The guy advertised he was a mechanic's helper, and I walked in there, and he says, "What do you?" No, I says, "Well, I went to school. I'm good at physics. You know, I did good in school. I like to be a mechanic." He says, "Can you drive a car?" Of course not. Says, "I can't use you." He says, "The only thing I can use over here is somebody to clean up the place and, you know, just help along with the... I can only give you $1 a day just to keep it going, you know.
So did you do that?
$6 for the week. I mean, even then it was a lot, not a lot, you know.
Right, right.
You couldn't live on that, you know. It cost 10 cents for the car fare, you know, with the subway. Subway was a nickel. I talked to him, and he sort of felt sorry for me, and, you know. He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll take you for a week for $10 a week. I'll take you for a week. And if you don't work out, I don't want you to have any hard feelings. I have to let you go." He says, "I'll take it." I took the job. I came in the next morning, got some dirty clothes, you know. And he told me to clean this and clean that. And then I did everything, you know, he told me. Then he had a car standing over there that he said, "Come on over, I want to see something." You see this car? They had the old cars had car ventilators. There was no air conditioning. That was the air conditioning.
Right.
You just opened it up and the air used to come in. Cold air used to come in. He says, "I took that thing apart, and it's not easy to take it apart because you got to get underneath the dashboard
Right.
and put it together. I got the parts over here. I got nothing for you to do. You want to try see if you can put that together, and I'm not going to hold it against you," he said, just like that. I go underneath there and I figured it out right away. You know, I had a mechanical mind
Right.
even then. Figured it out right away. I put it back together. Everything worked.
So you had a job.
It worked.
Yeah.
I walk over. I'm a quiet guy,
Right.
you know, especially even
Right.
today, you know, you don't hear me raise the roof at any time,
Right.
you know. I'm a quiet guy. He's laying underneath one of the cars and he's working on the engine. He had to put rings into the engine, you know. And I walk over there, you know, and I don't say nothing. I'm just waiting for him to come out. So he sees me standing there, you know. He says, "What's the matter? You can't do it?" I says, "No, it's okay." Just like that. He came up out from under there, walked over to the car, put the thing on, and it worked. He said to me, "You're gonna be okay."
So that was the start of your career, right?
That was the job
Yeah.
that got me
That's
the
great.
job.
That's great.
I worked for him for 2 weeks, you know.
Mhm.
He gave me another $2,
Right.
you know. Big sport.
So is that what you eventually did for your career?
That's how I wound up to be a mechanic.
Now, how did you end up in Stamford?
What?
How did you end up in Stamford?
That was in New York.
Yeah. So how did you end up here?
Well, that's another story. That comes way after the war, you know.
Right.
After I lived in the Bronx
Mhm.
for 43 years. I built my own house there.
Wow. So that's where you raised your family, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
right? And where did you meet your wife in New York?
The what?
Did you meet your wife in New York?
That's the story you want to hear.
Yes.
I was in the Army, and I was in Coffeyville, Kansas, on an airfield.
Mm-hmm.
I was a flight engineer on a B-25. And I was there quite a while. And the guys liked me. There was an incident there that made me over there in that place, you know. You want to hear that incident?
Sure. Were you drafted or were you enlisted in the Army?
The what?
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
Okay. So
They
tell us.
wouldn't even take my enlistment, I
Really?
don't think. I was a
Yeah,
classified enemy alien.
that's true.
Me an enemy alien. In fact, when I took the test, I had to have an interview. A Jewish lieutenant
Oh, really?
took me in. I was the only one that he interviewed. He took me in there, and he wanted to know what I know about Judaism. You know, I had a good education. My dad was a religious man.
Right.
He was satisfied. You know, everything was okay.
So now you're in Kansas.
Huh?
Now you're in Kansas, in the Army.
I was in Kansas.
Okay.
And I was a flight engineer in a B-25. That
Mhm.
meant that when they gave me one plane, when that plane was flying, I had to fly with it. But on the ground, I was a crew chief.
Wow.
I told the crew what to do, and I did work with them, you know.
Okay.
So we did all the maintenance on it. Well, one day something happened with one of the, not my plane, with one of the B-25s. We had a number of B-25s. That's the plane that Doolittle flew over Tokyo by.
They're bombers, aren't they? Are they bomber
Yeah.
planes? That's what I thought, yeah.
B means bomber.
Bomber, yeah.
Yeah. He flew over Tokyo
Okay.
at that time, if you remember. But the plane was an excellent plane, but it was too slow. You know, they
Mhm.
wanted something faster,
Mhm.
zippier, you know. And, well, anyway, they used these planes for training missions
Right.
over there. And they had one plane over there, they didn't know what was wrong. There was an electrical problem, and they had a guy that was the electrician on the all these airplanes, you
Right.
know. And he couldn't get it done, you know. Somehow and they didn't know what to do. They'd have to get it to the depot, and that would have been a real hassle,
Right.
you know.
So,
we all standing around in the hangar, you know, and the lieutenant in charge of the hangar said, told us what the problem is over there, you know, that they can't get this thing up in the air because the instruments don't work,
Right.
you know. So after he got through, he says, does anybody have any ideas, you know? I had no idea, yes, you know, but I raised my hand and I said, I only know what these guys know. I went to the same school, you know.
Right.
I went to a very good Army
Mhm.
Air Force school,
Okay.
excellent school. But, I said, when I was in civilian life, I worked for a cab company as the electrician for 2,300 cabs, Palmerly Transportation in New York City.
Mhm.
And I did all the shorts. I said, if you don't mind, I'd like to try it. Like to try, see what's wrong, you know.
Right.
He hesitated for a little while. He says, go ahead and do it. I says, I want tech orders. It's a book this thick with all kinds of configurations on that airplane. And the important thing that I needed is a wiring diagram, you know.
Mhm.
He says, go to the parts department,
Yeah.
do it. And I need a light, you know, just so I can, you know, a test light, you
Right.
know, just so I can check out I took that thing with me, I took the test light,
Mhm.
walked into the plane, opened up the panel, and went along one step by step. I knew exactly what, you know, from the
Right.
plane, I knew exactly which circuit would cause that, you know. And it was just maybe just luck, you know. And I seen on that one bolt there, brass bolt, was a flicker. I says, that don't look so good to myself, you know. I took the nut off, you know, and looked at the wires there, 2 wires were
Right.
joined. And they didn't look so clean, you know. Didn't have nothing to clean with my uniform. Clean up the wires, put it back on, and tried it again. No more flicker.
And that did it?
Turned the thing on, it looked good, you know. I didn't turn the engine on, you know.
Right.
So I take this, I couldn't do anything else. I take the tech orders and I took the light and I went downstairs and went over to the parts department, you know. They had a little parts section, you know. And the lieutenant intercepted me and says, no luck? I says, I think it's okay. He looks at me like I was crazy, you know. He says, come on, let's take a look. Goes up there, starts up the engine, everything works. From then on in, they gave me a new name in there.
What was it?
They had the electrician that's over there,
Right.
nice kid,
Right.
but he didn't have one thing, experience.
Experience, right. So what did they call you?
So they called him DC, that's direct current, that's what
Right.
that the planes run on,
Right.
just like a car, you know.
Right. And what were you?
And they gave me a name, AC,
AC.
alternating car.
That's great.
But from then on in, I was made. Came to the, you know, we landed troops over there, and they needed German-speaking personnel. All of a sudden, they got a requisition for German-speaking people, and they had all my, you know, it was right on my record, you know.
Right.
They pulled out my card, my name appeared on
Right.
there, you know. They said I have to go to Hagerstown, Maryland for the intelligence school. And the lieutenant that I knew already, you know, said, Max, we are going to keep you there. I spoke to the commanding officer, the colonel. It was a small base,
Right.
It's only 600 soldiers there. I spoke to him, they're going to keep you here. I says, I don't think you will. I knew, you know, when they started the D-Day, no way. And sure enough, the orders were cut. You got to go to Hagerstown, Maryland.
Oh boy.
But I wiggled out a little concession. I never got home. Never got to go home, you know, on a furlough. I asked them for at least a 3-day pass. Just let me go home to my parents. They gave me a little more than the 3 days. They gave me almost 5 days, you know. Then I had to go back to Maryland, Hagerstown, Maryland, you know. I go there, and I call one of my friends, and sure enough, he was home too. He was in the engineers. And I said to him, "Why don't we go to the beach?" He says, "Sure, let's go." Went to the beach, and now we took our clothes off, got a little sunshine on us, you know. Took our clothes off, and we had to put the clothes someplace if you wanted to walk along the
Right.
water to eat, you know. I said, let's look for a family, maybe they'll watch it for us, you know. Sure enough, there was a family there with 3 little kids, you know. And we walked over there and says, would you be good enough to watch our clothes?
Right.
She said, sure, just bring him over here, put him right next to the blanket over here. We did. We laid down, took him to sun. All of a sudden I hear somebody says, who are these guys? And I look up and there was a nice pair of legs looking, staring me in the face. And the rest of it wasn't too bad either, you know. So I got up and introduced myself.
And what was her name?
Huh?
What was her name?
Eleanor.
Eleanor.
Never forget that name.
I'm sure.
That name stuck with me for 64
Yeah.
4 years.
The rest is history, huh?
Well, anyway, I went from there, had to go back to Hagerstown. That was you know, I had one good Army school, the
Right.
mechanic school,
Right.
but that school was a grind. You had to go to school 7 days a week. The 8th day, they gave you off. It was a grind. When it finally was up, they shipped us overseas.
Wow.
And I went in style. Oh, God.
That's okay. You know what? I want to get back more to your family life, if that's okay.
The
a little
what?
bit. Your family life, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Tell us. So, when you came back, did you and Eleanor get married, or did you keep in touch? How did that happen?
Let me tell you. While I was overseas,
Mhm.
Eleanor sent me a letter every day.
That's really nice.
Sometimes I got a stack this big.
Do you still have those letters?
Huh?
Do you keep those letters?
Nah.
Oh,
How can you keep, you know, in the army, you know?
right. That's true. So when you came back, did you get married?
Oh, when I finally came back,
Yes.
in fact, the army asked me to stay on, you know. I had
Mhm.
so many good qualifications, you know. I said, I had enough. This is it.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out as quickly
Right.
as possible. I went home to my mother, you know,
Yeah.
washed up,
Yeah.
and I called her up and says, are you going to be home? Sure.
Yeah.
I came home and we stayed. We were made for each other, let's put it
That's
that way.
wonderful. Wonderful.
And we decided we were going to get married, you know. But we had our problems too, you know.
And how many children did you have?
Huh?
How many children did you and Eleanor have?
6.
6 children, yeah. And then you said you settled in the Bronx, right?
Yes.
That's where you lived? And then, so you came to Fairfield County, you came to this area after you retired, I'm assuming. Is that correct?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So why did you come here to Stamford? Why did you come to Stamford?
Well, I was working. I was working as a mechanic. I
Right.
had my own place already, you know, and I made a little money. I decided to invest it, you know, and I bought a lot in Greenwich. It was 4 acres.
Wow. Sounds like a good investment to me.
$50,000 at the time.
Wow.
Doesn't mean nothing today.
No,
but-
today.
But then it was an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do nothing because I was busy. I had to work.
Right, right.
You know, with 6 kids, you gotta
Yeah. Or,
work. And I waited till retirement. Retirement, I said, I'm gonna do it. I drew up the plans, got them okayed, did the job. Made a beautiful house
in Greenwich.
in Greenwich.
Wow.
Well, it got to a point though, Eleanor got a little sick, you know. I didn't realize it at the beginning, you know,
Yeah.
but she couldn't understand little things. You know, little things have changed, you know. And she had to depend mostly on me to
Right.
take her wherever she wants to
Mhm.
go, you know. She used to be an independent
Right.
kid before, you know. And I decided if somebody comes along and pays me my, I'm gonna sell.
Right.
Well, who comes along? A dealer, not a dealer, a contractor comes along. I had a beautiful
House, yeah.
4 acres, you know. Comes along. I had problems with that too, but I don't want to go into all these
Okay,
things.
right,
you know.
right. So,
Comes along and I finally sold
Sold
it,
it.
you know. I sold it, I made sure I had a place to go to, so went to came to Stanford. Stanford was good for Eleanor because she could at least go to a store, you know, you didn't have to use the car all
Right.
the time.
right.
And that's how
That's how
I
you.
wound up here.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Huh?
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
What's the best children?
What?
What is children?
Oh, so what are your children? Your children, you told me before that you have a son in Stamford, a daughter in Florida, correct? Where are your children now?
Okay. I got the oldest daughter, Iris. She lives in San Diego. The middle one, Mimi, she lives in San Francisco. Then I have the youngest one, she lives in New Jersey. You know,
It's okay.
I'm talking too much.
But no, you're talking is fascinating.
Lives in New Jersey. Now the oldest boy, the boys came after the girls. The oldest boy lives in Syracuse, New York. And the middle boy lives in Florida, Fort Myers, Florida. And the youngest one lives in Stanford.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
Huh?
How many grandchildren do you have?
A dozen.
A dozen?
Yep.
That's a nice amount. Now, did you, as your children were growing up, did you maintain a Jewish household for your children?
Do what?
Did you have a Jewish household for your children?
Oh,
Did you
yes.
maintain?
Yes. Although my Eleanor wasn't that, I did it mostly for my parents.
Right.
I wanted my parents to come to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And your children had a Jewish
And,
education?
I lost my dad early on, you know. He was living in, you know, not too far from me
Yeah.
already, you know.
Well, that's
He
nice.
wanted to be near me. I was
Right.
the only surviving son. The other one died. And then when he died, my mother had she died she was almost 100.
Wow. She had a good life.
Huh?
She had a full, rich life, right?
Oh, she had, her life is something special too. She lost both of her parents in World War II, World War One. She became an orphan within 24 hours.
Wow.
So that's another story.
I know, we got lots of stories.
I tell you.
You've got wonderful stories, Max.
The what?
You have wonderful stories. Very rich. You have a rich family history. And we very much
Sometimes I
appreciate
think too rich.
No, we appreciate you sharing it with us very much.
Okay, thank you.
When